And welcome everyone to day number 13 of our 2021 season here at Colonial Downs, a Monday of racing set for August the 16th. And happy to welcome Jessica Paquette, our track analyst. Good to see you, Jess.
Good to see you, Jason.
We're ready to talk about an 11 race card. Now, we should mention again, if you're new to Colonial, races 10 and 11 are steeplechase races. They're run before the first race. So they're run at 12:15 and 12:50, and then the parimutuel side of things starts in race 1. So just make sure everybody remembers that.
And for those of you interested in watching the steeplechase races, you can also stream them on the NSA site.
There you go. Well, let's jump into the first race on the card, 1:45 p.m. first post, and a maiden special. I got to admit, Jess, there's some horses between Monday and Tuesday that I'm really excited to see run here. I'm pretty jazzed for this week because it's
there's some really good races this week.
It's kind of the quiet week, but for the Match Series and Virginia Derby. But I feel like I'm jazzed for this.
I mean, we had this card is pretty awesome, kind of top to bottom.
Yeah. Well, let's start. We start with a 1/16 maiden track race. So a 1-turn, a 1/16 for fillies and mares to maiden special weight. We had the first one of these of the season the other day, and it was kind of a bit of a merry-go-round race. It was a good group. They weren't separated by much, but there really wasn't a whole lot of passing going on. But I don't know that you can make judgment off of one race to cast it in a certain light.
No, I don't think so either. I Number one, Liberty Isle kind of stands out to me here. I've been trying to beat these short-priced Dallas Stewart horses all meet, and I keep getting beat by them. So this will be the one. She's going to be a short price. I like her switching back to the main track. Her turf race was okay, but her main track form has actually been really solid. And I think she's been catching some really good Kentucky fields. I mean, you look through some of the horses she was running against, and those are not slouches by any means.
It's interesting because of the 6 runners in the opener on the main track, 5 are coming off the turf, which makes sense because they've been running here at Colonial. We're obviously a turf-focused meet, but I feel like you just don't see that a lot. Where 83.3% of the field is coming from turf to dirt.
Sure.
Now, Michelle Lovell's got one in there for Jerry Romans. We should mention too, because maybe later the 4 who ran actually a really, really good race at this distance down at the fairgrounds over the main track, ran a pretty good one at Keeneland going a mile over the main track. They switched to turf, a couple of okay efforts, but it honestly seems like this horse might be best over the dirt.
Yeah, I think this is another one who the turf makes sense off of this horse's pedigree, and that one good second on turf, you kind of think that they'd keep on. But that last race at Colonial, that was a pretty average race, beaten as the favorite, and I do like this horse switching back to the main track. Your
picks for the opener?
1, 4, 6, and 5.
We are bottom level maiden claiming on the outer turf, the 5 furlong, which is a little more occurring regularly this meet than past years. We've usually been like primarily 5.5, which is still the majority, but we've had a number of these 5 furlong races and a big field of 12 here in the just the second race of the day.
This is a big one. I went with number 2, Fearless Kitten. I thought this one made massive improvements. A lot go in this horse's favor last time, coming back off the layoff, switching to the turf. And with that sort of pedigree, this was one that should have moved up on the grass. I also like that she only has a handful of starts. Inexperience is always appealing in these lower level maiden claiming races. In that effort last time out, she was second behind a horse named Beach House, who came back to win again. So that really flatters her performance.
Yeah, there was a morning line favorite here. I was way against the number 4 English Heiress. I just, the last effort was of course not great. The Star Rules race, I know somebody else came out of that to win. So it's a big class drop, I guess. But, it's also like third start off of a long layoff, and really neither of the first 2 have been all that great. I mean, you see the third place finish, but it was in a 6-horse field and was beaten by 15 lengths. So I just thought one to go against if it does hold at a short price.
I completely agree. I think she looks like a really vulnerable favorite here.
One of the angles I've been preaching a little bit is, week 2 was that week where everybody really started winning from off the pace. And number 5, X Marks the Spot, was one who was kind of stuck down on the rail in a race. And, same level, didn't do much running. It's going to be a huge price. That's the main reason I mentioned it. I thought it was kind of an interesting one. And I think the horse on the outside is going to get some support just off of 2 good second place finishes, even though on the grass. But where did you land here? Your total picks for race 2, Jess?
2, 12, 4, and 3.
Oh, so you had the 12 too. Is that horse? Has that horse ran turf before? No, this will be a first turf, right?
First time turf. Those Mosler offspring do seem to be really taking to the grass. He's the son of Warfront, so again, that makes sense. And I think the surface switch is really interesting for him.
The third race on the card, we are back on the main track at a mile, and we kind of exciting. We get the third place Kentucky Derby finisher from a couple of years ago, making his return. Mr. Big News, first start since the Preakness of 2020.
Sort of. What do you do with him? Do you
Yeah.
use him or do you try to beat him? I am using him right on top. I think at a certain point, class just takes you. He's been on the shelf again since the 2020 edition of the Preakness, and I mean, I'm sure no one has forgotten, but everything was weird last year, and. And the Preakness was the third and final leg of the Triple Crown held in the fall. So it isn't as much of a layoff as if you first just think of him being on the shelf since the 2020 Preakness.
Mm-hmm.
It was really only since the fall.
Yeah.
I think I'll have some pace to shoot at. The Brett Calhoun barn has really started to heat up as the meet has gone on as well. I think he's coming in really sharp off the bench.
That move he made in the Kentucky Derby was so flashy on the turn, and I remember I fell in love with that, and of course liked him in the Preakness, and then he forgot to run in the Preakness. But that move in the Derby, I was like, God, that was something. And then he kind of just paralleled Authentic and Tis the Law, and of course we know what they both did. So very excited to see the return.
They both retired, is what they both did.
Good, yeah, good point. Wanted to ask you about the Dale Bennett horse in here, Galerio, who is coming off fourth place finish to the Fat Man, who's kind of been a regular stakes participant, if not graded stakes winner. Comes a third place finish in the Grade 3 Salvatore Mile 2 back. I mean, this horse has been keeping some good company.
So I didn't use him, but this just speaks to the quality of this race, right? Like, this is a graded stakes quality little field, and Galerio, I wouldn't talk anyone off of him. He's just a hard knocking, shows up almost every time, kind of the model of consistency. And that race in Salvatore Mile, I thought was actually really good.
Yeah, that was the one informative one. I remember they I have to scroll back down now. Who's the horse that ran second that day? It was
New York Traffic.
Yeah, New York Traffic, who was bet really heavily that day. Informative was like 75-1, and Informative was kind of the only one that closed that day. We've talked a bit about the crop thing, and it seemed like everybody else was kind of standing still, and then New York Traffic kind of stalled a little bit too, and then Informative just ran on like a beast. So it was a weird race. Should mention the number one Pit Boss too, coming out of the Necker Island race. Necker Island, of course, participated in the Derby back in 2020 as well, and Gunnett finishing second, another nice horse. So some really, really good horses in the third race, and you went with the 7 on top. Who'd you go with underneath?
The 1, 2, and 3.
Fourth race on the card, and it's a $60,000 allowance, 5 furlongs again over the outer turf. We got some big speed down toward the inside, and Street Silence, who was a wire-to-wire winner last time out. It's the brother Satchmo, 5 furlong turf race. You expect some speed, but there's a lot of speed, I feel like, in this race.
I went with the number 1 Street Silence on top, just kind of striking while the iron is hot. And it really seems to be. I thought that last win was really sharp. And one thing we've talked about, kind of, we are seeing a trend kind of head towards horses being pretty well spotted on the front end. The turf course is playing a little favorably now to front runners after really benefiting closers at the start of the meet. It's playing really fairly, I think, right now. And I liked that win. I think this horse, again, good right now.
Yeah, we're seeing a number of horses that have won from just off the pace, but they're falling into really good trips too and stuff like this. So I'm really curious, because if I remember right, this is the week where the rails go back out. Because they had 4 settings for the first 4 weeks, and so it's going to be really, really interesting, especially on Monday here early on, to kind of to see where horses come from and how they win. Just your picks there for the fourth.
1, 5, 2, and 4.
Fifth race on the card, we begin our 50-cent late pick 5, and these have produced some monster payouts. And obviously, the bigger fields are usually in the latter half of the card, even though we have a 12 early on. But 16,000 non-winners of 2 lifetime here in this event. Where did you land here in this big full field 12?
I mean, I'm sure you can guess. I'm continuing with my theory of going from the jumps to the flat. And I went with number 5, Fast Car. I think a little bit of value here at 8-1 if we can get something close to that. Jack Fisher is a world-class horseman and, has done well with horses both on the flat and, of course, over fences. This one's going back to the flat after 2 efforts this year over fences. He's very capable on the flat. He broke his maiden there in 2019 locally. Obvious ability. He's a graded stakes winner on the flat as well. And again, I just have this theory that these steeplechase horses are coming into these races with a little bit of a conditioning edge. It's like going from a route to a sprint, just a route to a shorter route. And the way they train and the surfaces they do primarily race over, there are hills, there are uneven surfaces, and there are obstacles. So you just have to think they're a little fitter.
Well, the last time we saw this horse on the flat, it was at Colonial Downs. It was at a mile on the turf, and the horse won going away. So we'll see if
with Forrest Boyce aboard, who will be back aboard today.
Phobo, as I call her.
Oh, do you?
I'm trying to get that to happen. I don't think it's going to, though.
I feel like we should have that line from Mean Girls. Stop trying to make Phobo happen. It's not going to happen.
I know. I really wanted Raylu to take off on muddy courses so I could say Raylu on the goo. but it's just,
I don't like that word.
yeah, it's, well, you know, I get that. I get that. I wanted to ask if you included Hercules Harbor. I remember you had this horse last time out. It got bet and then got suckered into a early pace duel. Still ran okay. Did you go back to that well at all, at least underneath?
I did not. Kind of fool me once, fool
Yeah.
me. I really liked this horse going into that last race simply because the start was so bad on
Yeah.
opening day, and I thought he rallied on and ran really well. His
Mhm.
effort next time, it was fine. I would have liked to see a little bit more pop from him, but he did kind of wheel back pretty quickly that day. He's been freshened a little
Yeah.
since. You can make a case for him. I just didn't.
Oh, I mean, they went too fast that day. I remember they were battling, and I'm just thinking, what is he doing? But yeah, yeah. The other thing I want to mention was I know you've been a big Neil Morris fan. This meet, he's got gas money in here. Is 10-1 on the morning line. Ran against similar level two back at Penn and ran pretty good. They tried Allowance Company Mountaineer, was a little bit too much. Did the number 9 make it into your picks at all?
He did.
Yeah.
And I like that he's lightly raced. He came back off of an extended layoff. I'm actually curious to talk to Neil about what he was doing for the past 2 years, because I have to imagine, he may have been injured or rehabbing from that, but he was probably doing some things. Some of these point-to-point races and other types of jump meets don't show up in the past performances. So it's interesting to find out what if maybe they've been competing doing that in the interim.
Your picks for the fifth?
5, 3, 9, and 8.
Did you put? Okay, I had Luis Two Guns as a super duper huge long shot with a chance. So we'll see if the number 1 can sneak in there somewhere.
It's a really competitive race.
Yeah, it's fun one. I'm so jazzed about the 6th race. We're gonna get to see Lidstrom. I'm actually a little self plug here. I got Michael Stidham coming on my podcast, Jason Beem Horse Racing Podcast.
You have a podcast?
Wherever you find your podcast, you can find it. Yeah. So I'm having Stidham on. I'm interviewing him Sunday, but it's not going to air till Tuesday after this race is run. So I'm not sure how to talk to him about a $2.5 million purchase, Jess. And you said there's some success in this family, which would explain the $2.5 million, right?
Well, just a little bit of success. Yeah. This horse is a half sibling to Kentucky Derby winner and champion Nyquist. And this one's bred to be a world beater. I'm sure he's also a good looking bred to be a world beater to fetch $2.5 million. The Tappets, of course, do sell for big money, but this horse doesn't just have a strong stallion in his corner. He's also out of a mare who's just been a tremendous producer. And Nyquist has to be the most pleasant surprise as a young stallion. I am so impressed by his offspring kind of routinely. So there's just so much class in this family. This is a barn that has been preparing their horses so well for their debut efforts. We see them schooling the youngsters all the time in the afternoons in the paddock. So, obviously this is the one to beat here.
Yeah. He's actually got a couple Tuesday as well, which we'll talk about on tomorrow's show. Stidham, I think, he's got some big guns coming out here in the coming days at Colonial. And
it is worth noting that this horse is competing for the first time with Lasix, which you and I were talking at the apartment last week, and that's my question as to why maybe this horse didn't show up at Saratoga if the Lasix is an issue.
Yeah, we're certainly going to find out. What's interesting about the families and all that stuff. Nyquist obviously was Nyquist and made like $6 million. There was another sibling who sold for 1.75 who's made $2,000.
So, pedigree only takes you so far.
I know, and so it's going to be really interesting to see how this one plays out. I worth noting though, Nyquist was named after a Detroit Red Wing hockey player. This horse named after Nick Lidstrom, who was a great player for the Red Wings back in the 2000s and played for like 20 years. So maybe they're trying to make lightning strike twice with the naming approach too. But this isn't the only horse worth mentioning. We have Flying with Angels, who's a $500,000 West Point thoroughbred runner, cool comedian. I thought ran a very, very good race last time at Ellis. There's a Elvis Trujillo, first of all things, the former jock now training. But and Stidham has another one in here that actually looks pretty good too.
I like the other Stidham. The other Stidham, is that an angle like the other Baffert?
The other Stidham. I feel like we haven't seen a lot of other Stidhams.
No, so this one's kind of interesting. He's more of a workman than he doesn't have the big flashy pedigree or the big flashy price tag, but he can obviously run. Mm-hmm. He's had every chance at this point to break the maiden and get that job done. However, 8 starts, but he's been on the board with 6 of them. You have to use him in your exotics, I think.
Yeah, the price tag thing to me is so interesting because people are going to see that on that 2 horse and bet accordingly. And you almost wonder if the horse is going to be overbet strictly because of that and because of the family. And so maybe you do look somewhere else, but obviously you got to wait and see what the price tag is and what it looks like. The horse that I remember from earlier in the meet you talked about, a horse might walk in, and you might think this is a total router. Why, he's just tuning up in this one kind of thing.
Or I might see him and go, he's a total tappet and probably needs a few races to figure out how to be a civilized member of society.
Is that a problem?
The tappets are, they're exuberant. They have a lot of personality and a lot of opinions, and I think it takes them sometimes a little while to develop mentally. They're precocious and these big athletic horses, but sometimes it's just a lot. They're a lot.
We used to have a horse like that in Washington, Sloodle Doo. People used to always talk about how his babies were always terrors at the gate and stuff like that. Jess, your picks for that 6th race?
2, 9, 8, and 3.
The 7th race on the program, a mile to filly and mare, a turf event, non-winner of 2 other than, and again, just part of an interesting card today. I thought a few different ways to go in here. Where did you land?
I remember handicapping this race and writing out my comments for the week, and I think I changed my top selection like 4 times. This is just one of those races you can go in so many different ways. I did wind up settling on number 1, Empress Eleanor. Horatio Karamanos will be aboard. We saw him have a hat trick on, I think it was Wednesday. It was Wednesday of last week. There's no one better on this turf course, and this horse herself has just been the model of consistency. She really has yet to run a bad race from 6 starts.
I'm real curious to see how Tynan fares, the number 2, just because Kabisky, when he's come here, he never comes here like full bore. He usually just comes with a handful, but they always seem to run and win. It's always for PTK. I think he might be just a private trainer for them at this point, but coming off a pretty decent effort at a $40,000 level at Churchill, that the Churchill races have seemed to stack up pretty well here. But that being said, I mean, you got the Trombetta horse, Villanelle, I thought was a little bit interesting. Delacour, I think, has 2 in here. Is that this race, or is that a different race? I think that's a different race.
That might be a different race.
Yeah,
but there's also a nice horse for Shug, who I didn't use, but has a shot. Got
to toss somebody out. And the other thing is Mike Deeney shows up here regular at Monmouth and Tampa. He's got a couple in this week. So Bramble Bay, I remember, was one I called back at Monmouth in 2019, I believe.
And coming in off of really good form.
Yeah. Comes in off a nice win at Monmouth Park on the grass, and second in a stake there. Restricted one, but stake nonetheless. Your picks for the 7th, Jess?
1, 4, 6, and 9.
Whenever I introduce these races, I try to read the condition, and then I usually have a note to myself. And then my run for the 8th race just says, "This is a monster race." Feel the 14, and boy, there's just a lot of ways to go. It's competitive. I mean, this is to me Colonial Downs at its best, a big, wide open, talented grass field.
And I am taking a swing. I mean, I hope Merv's morning line is correct here, because I will take 12 to 1.
8
all day, every way on number 8. How are we saying his name, by the way? I'll defer to you now. Revere. Okay. Yeah. I mean, crazy pedigree on this filly. She cost $300,000. She's a half to turf graded stakes winners, Divine Oath and Auntie Joy. Really an impressive female family, kind of all the way down. Only 3 starts, and she's shown really a lot of ability. She was racing for Christophe Clement earlier in her career, but that Monmouth and Tampa form, I think, will hold.
It's been good. I'm real curious. I mean, like I said, I feel like we could talk about every horse in here and give them a shot. I mean, Brendan Walsh has been basically unbeatable since coming here. He has Vividly, who's coming over from Churchill, who's just not been able to quite compete in the allowances over there. And you can argue that, for the $100,000 pot, those might be a little bit tougher. But Tomlinson's horse, Miss Adeline, is 15 to 1 on the line. And I thought lightly raced and, ran okay against, I mean, I literally could
We also have Saffy Joseph at 6 to 1.
Oh, the Saff man, who doesn't love him? But I mean, there's just so many options in this race, and horses in good form. I mean, Jane Sabelli's horse is running good. I mean, it's just it's an awesome race. What were your top 4? 8, 5, 12, and 4. Oh, you did go with Vividly. Okay, yeah,
I did. Oh, I'm not dim. I think
sorry, you took that and moved it way over, and you took the 4 that I mentioned. Okay, so we're seeing this one the same. That's what I was.
Yeah, very much. Except I think 8 to 1. I think 12 to 1 on Revere is just maybe a huge value if we can get close to that.
And if we don't, we blame Merv.
I will blame Merv. Yes.
Yeah, Carlos David also coming in with one here. Sky Snow, a very high percentage barn from down in South Florida. This horse comes in off 2 straight wins, obviously at lower levels, but speed figure wise, talent figure wise, I mean, certainly isn't a crazy entry. I mean, that is such a cool race. I can't wait for the 8th race.
It's just so cool to look through some of the trainers that we get to talk about on a regular basis. And it's, Olympian Mike and Kentucky Derby winner Michael Matz and Brendan Walsh. And I mean, Michael Stidham, it's a very cool group.
Yeah. I know as a race caller, it's pretty neat when Eclipse Thoroughbreds or these famous silks that you've seen, Ramses we've seen over here, when they stroll out onto the track, Darley, Godolphin, whatever. And yeah.
I have to admit, I was a little starstruck interviewing
Michael Dickinson.
Yeah. I was a little starstruck until I actually spoke to him, and then I was just delighted.
That was a memorable interview on a few different levels.
It was like maybe a top 3 career highlight for me. When I think of the highlight reel of my life, that's going to be on it.
Well, as tough as that 8th race is, the 9th race is a maiden claimer, 10,000. And I think that a lot of folks are going to possibly be singling the 3-horse Fake ID, who's just, dropping in price just enough. And Sarah Nagel's horses have been running really, really well here. I think this is a pretty logical one in the finale.
Well, I'm trying to beat the favorite there.
Good.
I'm going with number 9 coming back. I think this horse looks conservatively spotted for his debut. A homebred, out of a quality mare as well. The mare was a winner on the turf. So I think there's a lot to like here. Like you said about Dane Kabisky too, this is a barn that is live when they come here.
Yeah.
And the steady work tab, I think this is a soft spot for a horse to debut.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a lot of the horses that have run already have not fared all that great. Kieran Godsey's horse, the 6 Fashionable, had a pretty good start here on opening week, came back to not really run that well in the last start. I just thought for the ones that have run, the 3 certainly looks like the one. I guess Ollie Figgins firster, I would want to ask you about that one, the 5. He's a barn who hits about 15% with first-time starters, and there's not a whole lot of work tab on this one, though.
So I didn't use this horse. Yeah. I used kind of this horse in the lower end of my exotics for 4th, but big fan of the Ollie Figgins barn. His daughter Kelsey does such a phenomenal job transitioning their horses to off the track careers, and it's really fun to watch. So this is a barn that I really like how they run their operation.
Your picks for the 9th and final?
9, 3, 1, and 5.
Well, I'm pumped for this Monday of racing. I know we're supposed to have some weather throughout the week, but what we've learned about the Colonial, you don't have to worry necessarily about the turf coming off. I shouldn't say that because it'll jinx it, but our turf holds a lot of water, so be prepared to be on the turf whether there is a little bit of rain or not. But pumped for the Monday.
Did you forget our steeplechase races, Jason?
Oh crap, I did. I 100% did. I even closed my I'm so used to seeing the 9th race and having that be the end.
I haven't forgotten about the jumpies.
It's not a steeplechase thing. It's a 9th race thing. Let me open my program back up. Did that whole big sign off, and now I forgot we got. Now you guys can't bet on these, but you can watch, as Jessica said, stream them on the NSA website. Just the 10th race, 2 miles to be run over the national fences. These are maidens, which of course doesn't mean they're maidens in life, but over the jumps.
So I went with the 2 How You Tuppence coming out for Carrie Bryan. This is a barn that has been incredibly live at Saratoga, really an up-and-coming barn, I think, in the steeplechase arena. This one ran 3rd, was DQ'd last time behind a horse named Ritzy AP, who, while he didn't fare that well at Saratoga, I still liked his effort.
I thought Ritzy AP ran about 2 1/4 miles in a 2/16 race, so he was wide kind of the whole way in that last one.
Yeah. So I think he has a bright future as well. But this one's one, often we see these horses who start their career on the flat. They are very often very nice horses on the flat, and then they transition to steeplechase. Jumps were always the idea with this one. Only 3 starts, has shown more than enough ability.
I mentioned earlier, Jess, I have a podcast.
Tell me more.
Jason Beem Horse Racing Podcast, sponsored by Twin Spires. Carrie Bryan, Wednesday's guest.
Excellent.
There you go. Mike.
We are converting you to a jumpies fan.
Well, she does both. So we're going to talk, but she's got, I think, 4 horses in the Jonathan Shepherd who she worked for. So I thought it was a good story angle. And so very excited.
I look forward to listening.
Your picks for the 10th race.
2, 4, 5, and 1.
The 11th race, a handicap, which horses rated 110 or lower. I think last week the handicap was 115, if I remember. Where did you land here in this field of 9?
Vincent Van Gogh. He was a winner on the flat, and I'm assuming that was just a tightening effort for this horse to return to fences. He won over jumps 2 starts back, so he obviously has ability, kind of doing whatever you ask of him. And athletes are athletes. This is one who clearly has found his stride both on the flat and over fences.
I would be really curious to see, and maybe Daryl is our guy to go to, if anyone has ever won a race on the flat at Colonial during the same meet as winning a jump race.
Fun fact. We'll find out. Stay tuned.
I mean, there certainly haven't since I've been here, but I don't know how far the jumps go back here, and Daryl's been here since they broke dirt. Anyway, so your picks for the 11th and final.
8, 3, 2, and 6.
Oh, you snuck Gostis Bear in there.
I did.
I love Gostis Bear. All right, let's wrap up now, Jess. We talked about the 11 races on the card. I got to go back and edit out that whole part where I neglected the jump races. Nah, we'll leave it in. What the hell? We'll see you guys back tomorrow. Good Tuesday card. Looking forward to it. Racing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday here, of course, at Colonial Downs. And best of luck.